Procedures and opinions, and it's 5:12 a.m. Here we go. Claritin. I took it, made things easier on me. Sinuses are still stuffed up, but I got a decent night's sleep. No, I'm not getting this sponsored. I really should, but that's what worked this time. And yeah, it's going to have side effects, and it's going to suck, and you can only take one pill a day, and it stops working halfway through, I'm sure, but I don't remember the last time I did it. So I'm making that as part of the video. Sorry, but I had to insert that because I've never recorded all this, because when I'm sick I don't record any of my data because I'm an idiot. I don't keep track of what actually happens to me while testing medicines like over-the-counter stuff. And that will badly segue into this video on how do we test our smart meters and see if we're really, really uber-sensitive, special snowflake people, or just whiny bastards who figured out when to wake up at night and scream, "Oh my God, the terror, the pain, the Illuminati." Now, everybody knows my opinion at this point, but it's an earned opinion. It's a really asshat opinion. Now that we've gotten the 1 minute mark in 5 seconds, actually pay attention to what I'm going to tell you to do if you want to test this. That should filter out all the people who are reactionaries. They'll be posting below. They won't be watching the video. They'll be posting below me and you. 4 corners. In the United States and most of the developed world, we use cuboids. To hell with them round wigwams. So anyway, if you want to test to see if you're really sensitive to radio signals, radiation, whatever, you set up equipment and test to see if you can detect anything happening, but you don't let the person who says they're sensitive look at it. You do the test for over a month. You spend the first day getting a baseline. It's throwout data. It's just for creating the baseline. And you make them keep a log of every time they have a reaction, and you take away their detectors. You can't have any detectors. Why? Because I said so. I'm not going to explain it to you. I don't care if you like me. I am getting paid to do this, and you're not going to have any radio receivers in here of any kind. You're not going to have any radio sources of any kind. Your complaint is the smart meter or the high tension lines or the cell phone antennas in the area are tormenting you, and you're a special person because you can sense this. Now, the reason I'm such a sarcastic jackass about this is it's earned. How do we earn this? We put sensors on each corner of the building. That gets all of the signal. Let's say this is a corner here. From here all the way around, we can detect some signal. Doesn't matter how good it is, just detecting something. The equipment is set up in such a way that it uses very, very low frequency communications cables. They're shielded, twisted pair. They come from inside the building at a power outlet right near the window where it's plugged in for the power source. Goes out and it uses an analog power source, a little dumb charger, not a smart one. No radio signals being produced by the equipment, can't. And the box itself either records for the full month because we designed it that way so that everything can be enclosed in a little metal box where it can't interfere with itself, or it feeds back into the system and dumps it somewhere. No one can get at the information. It has to check from one frequency all the way up through the entire spectrum to the top end, arbitrarily, and you do a full scan between these frequencies. For the first 24 hours, make it a Wednesday of the month, in the middle of the month, to get rid of most of the variables. You check this layer here. We call this the grass because it looks like grass on an oscilloscope. It'll have all sorts of noise and spikes in it, but it doesn't drop below this level, and it's a very clear, demarcated, really obvious. I mean, when you look at it on a scope, it's really obvious. You spend 24 hours checking for it because you may have wavering of it. You spend the first 24 hours just recording every single thing. Then you don't take an average. You take the peak of what constantly comes out. Doesn't matter what it is. You declare that your baseline. That's the noise. If you're sitting there for 4 years and you're exposed to radio frequency noise across the entire spectrum all day long, you're going to lose sensitivity. Admit it. No, I won't admit it because I'm a special person and I can sense these things. Okay, that's fine. But it's going to get recorded and you're not getting the data. Most of the people who claim to have electromagnetic sensitivities or radiation sensitivity or whatever don't legitimately test things because they have a vested emotional or psychological reason and a vested self-interest in not admitting something I'm going to say in this video right now. The absolute one thing I found that correlates to almost, in fact, really 100% of the population is people who claim to be sensitive to things are the least sensitive people on the face of this planet. They can't sense electricity on their skin. I can put a 100,000 watt transceiver in a room, they don't know what's on. I used a 1 kilowatt, but it had spike capability up to 100,000. So I created 100,000, watt spikes at certain frequencies. No sensitivity. I did a split spectrum. I did lots of spikes spread out. Nothing. They're literally incapable of sensing a radio signal, no matter how intense or pervasive. I can make it waver, twice a second, audio frequencies, anything that you would think a person can detect. They are universally people who are unable to sense a radio signal. Now, this is that whole thing that people bring up. You can't prove a negative. Yes, you can. It's not a negative result. You're confirming humans can't sense that. For the same reason you can confirm a person can hear middle C. Can you hear boop, or whatever I just made, that note, whatever it is? Yes. Is that the majority of people? Yes. That indicates you have the ability to sense sound. If I put my hand up here and then take my hand away, did you see that? That means you can sense light. It's a very basic go-no-go test. If you universally don't detect visually anything that's going on or hear anything, you're deaf or blind, because that is a negative result. You've confirmed you're unable to sense these things. The only group of people I know of who show absolutely no sensitivity to the radio frequency spectrum are people who claim to have that sensitivity. Period. One of the things I've explained to people, I taught a class a long time ago, it's not relevant, is that people who can confirm a negative result, who will literally give you that the joke is you can't confirm a negative, that's not real. You can. Because if you get everybody who claims to have an ability and all of them lack it, that confirms that that group of people will always lack it. People who claim to be able to predict the future get it wrong a huge amount of time. If I claim to hear a sound and nobody else hears it, that doesn't make me special, it just means I'm wrong. Maybe I'm sensing radio signals. Okay, but you have to find a way to prove there's something else going on. Maybe you just have an inner ear infection. I have a shorted out one of the detectors for a certain frequency in my ear. It's very common. It makes a high-pitched squeak. Hee! Constantly. I just eventually stop paying attention to it. And that's the second stage of this. People who are exposed to things on a regular basis stop being sensitive to it because it's of no use to them. If you're constantly exposed to, like the light here, I'm using the backlight on my computer as a way to light up my face. To give this ghoul face. I should patent this. But anyway, while I'm looking at the screen, it's stressing my eyes, and the fatigue level makes it to where when I look away, there's this giant square spot where I can't see shit. Because it accommodates for it. If you're constantly looking at books, you can make yourself nearsighted. This is the thing. Alright? And if you're constantly exposed to heat, or in my case, stress, or you're always exposed to cold, you will adapt to it. People who claim that they're constantly being bombarded by something never indicate that it ebbs and flows the way that would make sense. It's always this presumption of what it ought to be. That's why I have this attitude about proving your religion is the one true religion because it has predictive and useful practical results. No, it doesn't, because it doesn't offer anything. I'm just being a jerk at that point, but no, really. Does knowing Jesus died on the cross for your sins get your car started in the morning? And of course, the proper joke, if you're a real Christian, is, you're dang right it does, because as I pray every time I hit that switch. And I'm not being mean here. I mean, that's a normal Christian would make that kind of joke. People who are over serious, you guys, you really need to loosen up. It's the plastic Jesus on the dashboard that holds the engine together. I think it's a line from a song. I got to look that up. But the point I'm making here is, if there's no practical testing that confirms something is accurate or usable, it isn't. When you get 100 bad results from a specific weatherman who became a joke, I think it was in Kentucky, something like that, you just say he's a crappy weatherman and that's it. He's proven he doesn't know how to do it. He's a reverse barometer, literally in this case. But that's kind of the point I'm making here. If you consistently get results or don't get results, or if they're no better than 50-50 or whatever statistically should happen, it doesn't always have to be 50-50. The only thing you confirmed is that you can't confirm something. But if someone universally is just wrong every damn time, Paul Bagley, that's it. Oh, we're about to be, the Illuminati is going to round us up and put us in a FEMA camp where we're going to get microchipped because Jade Helm is happening. Has it ever happened? No. That is the gigantic red flag in front of the bull thing. When you ask them, have you ever been right about this assertion you've been making over the last 10 years that hasn't happened? It's not a joke. It's like literally, you've confirmed your ability to be a reliable source for inside information about what's about to happen to our asses is zero. You are crap. You don't know what you're doing. Now let's get back to the electromagnetic spectrum thing. Tricks that you have to do. You contact the power company. Say, we're running a test of radio signals in your area. We need them to not match at this address. Can you change the timing that you send off the neuralizer or the tormentor? No, you ask them, do you have a regular time during the day or month or year or whatever that you have the computer systems access the locations in general to get it? And here's something you'll find out. You ask them about it. You don't tell the customer or the person doing the study. If you were to decide exactly at this time of day to ask every single system in the entire city of Los Angeles how much power was used over the last 24 hours, that would be a burst of data transmissions choking up a network that, whether it's mesh-based or cloud-based, it doesn't matter. That's dumb. Why would you do that? Or would you spread it out over the day over like a couple of dozen locations in time to ask each neighborhood? Or would you have each neighborhood do a generalized statistic? Now, unless somebody has gotten a warrant to tell the power company, we want you to check their power meter by the minute, you know, because you think they have a pot farm or something, the most of these things are going to spread out. Maybe they're daily, maybe they're throughout the week, but they're not necessarily supposed to do that. Oh, well, the accountants want it to be on a Wednesday. That's great, but the tech geek who has to do the network is going to say, hell no, I'm not going to have it all do a data flood exactly in one day. You want to schedule when we crash? Okay, that's good. Go to hell. Yeah. And your mama. It ain't happening. I'm not equating everybody's mom with hell. Just certain people. The point I'm making here is, no, the tech support would literally go out and just slug somebody for doing that. I mean, some areas can do it. If you have a low number of people in an area, it might ka-chunk the information, that's a technical term, for a neighborhood, or for a block, or for a whole town. But why wouldn't you just say all the data gets collected, you know, that way? Or you could also make it to where it waits until there's a certain number of watts of usage and then says it's a certain number of watts right now. That would spread it out naturally. If a person uses a lot of power, they would have lots of data transmissions. It would just send a ping and said, yeah, he's consumed another kilowatt or another 100 kilowatts or something. It would work. I can come up with better schemes than everybody else here. The point is, when you do your radio frequency testing, you don't let the person have the ability to make sure they guess right when it's happening. And you also ask the electric company what they're actually doing. It can be all over the place. But this universal joke of, it always happens at 4:20 a.m., but I woke up, and again, I woke up, and amazingly enough, it was 4-something a.m. That's because I went to sleep at a certain time, and there's a horn that honks over there. Some of you know about the horn. Don't lie about it. And that's the other thing. You also record at each of the corners sound. Exterior and interior. That's the only thing you do interior. What you're doing is relying on the idea that they're seeing or hearing something. Usually it's hearing that wakes people up, not visual. You can also check for, seismic activity and 100 other things. I've actually helped people figure that out. Whatever's waking you up in the middle of the night is probably not the radio signal from your smart meter. But if you're claiming it is, find out whether or not your smart meter is doing this. Don't go out there with a meter and say, well, I see a spike, or it confirmed by... No, if you're doing the testing of how good you are at guessing something, you're always going to be right. Or you're going to claim that, well, they're making it to where I look like a fool. If you take it emotional, if you take it personal, you need to be impersonal when you check these things. Because the electrons don't care, and you shouldn't either. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.